Today is September 30th, 2015. My name is Joe Todd, and this is an interview with Nuncio Falco in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and you live in Mira Loma, California.
That is correct.
And you're here for the 45th Division reunion.
The 70th.
The 70th reunion.
That's a big one.
Sir, where were you born?
Los Angeles, California. 3/30/31.
31.
Almost 100 years ago.
Who was your father?
John Falco.
And your mother?
Helen Falco.
What was her maiden name?
Gomez.
Gomez. Okay. Did you go through school in L.A.?
I went to school in, yes, L.A. County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Elementary, grammar school, and Puente High School, to be correct.
Which high school?
Puente means bridge in Spanish.
Okay.
But, and got out of, graduate June of 50.
1950.
Mm-hmm.
In your schooling, who was your favorite teacher?
Our shop teacher, Mr. Van Dam, and he became a real prosperous alfalfa grower in El Centro, California.
And why was he your favorite teacher?
Why?
Why?
Taught me how to weld. And we could fix our trucks and even take a tractor once in a while on Saturday and do a little fixing on it.
Now, where'd your parents come from?
My dad came from Sicily and landed in Nova Scotia, 1914. My mother came from Mexico, the state of Michoacan, and they landed in Los Angeles, I think, in 1922. And my dad worked at a grocery store with his brother, and my mother and grandpa lived next door, and that's how they met. And they married in 29, and I was born in 31.
Okay. How did your parents talk about the Depression, how it affected the family?
Oh, yes. My dad, in 1934, him and some old friends from the old country, immediately, they bought an old Model T or Model 8, old truck, and they would go down to the railroad yards and buy produce and go around the neighborhoods and sell it to to retail. And they just kept getting bigger and bigger, and one of them has got a fruit corporation now in Bakersfield. So anyway, and my dad stayed with it. We were vegetable growers and fruit growers, and we were like in the 100-acre class. Had a Caterpillar tractor and some John Deeres and Fords. So. And finally, after I came back from Korea, things weren't too good with my dad, the bad partnerships and things, and finally by 1975 he fully retired. Yeah, and I went to work I was produce manager for quite a few years for different food chains. Yeah.
Do you remember when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor?
Oh, hell yes I do.
What do you think about this?
Well, they were our neighbors. And out to the farm where my dad would go out and buy produce from them, I overheard my dad talking to Takeshi, was a good friend, my age, he was 11 or 12.
What was his name?
Takeshi. And I heard him tell some other kids that they were going to camp. I thought they were going, like the rich kids in New York, they sent them off to camp in the summer. Then on the way home with the truck and loaded with strawberries and stuff, I says, Dad, they must have made a lot of money last year and they're going to camp. He said, not that kind of camp. I didn't know what a camp was. Camp. So anyway, they went through the war, and a lot of the older brothers, even though they were locked up, they still signed up for the 442.
Yes. And
I got to know one of them.
The 442nd?
Yeah, Hawaii Division, yeah.
Yep.
Fought the hell in. In fact, the only time I asked him, Al Maeda, were you the guys kind of rescued that bunch of the 36 Texas outfit? He says, yeah, they were totally surrounded by Germans, and they came up during the night and got them out. And that's all he talked about.
Yep.
Never talked again. Battlefield Commission, and wound up as a first lieutenant. War finished. He had a kind of feeling about the West Coast. So he stays at the University of Chicago as ROTC, Master Sergeant. And after the war, you know how your grade goes. He stayed there 10 years. 55, he comes to California, and he's a produce manager, like at a Safeway. And I'm just through farming. He says, "Come over to work for me. I'll teach you this business." And I did. And we stayed friends till he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. He never talked about the battles, though. He only talked about, said, yeah. I said, "Alan, did you have that Longhorn Division or whatever, the Texas 36?
Yes.
He says, "Yeah, we helped him out." So, yeah.
Did you think the Japanese would invade the West Coast?
That night, that afternoon of December 7th, Pancho Acosta across the street, Nick the mechanic, and it was a Filipino chef. All the neighborhood was Nick's, and all working people. I heard him ask, "John, how many bullets you have for that 45 you got, that old?" And he says, "About 6. "Pancho, what do you got in that 12 gauge? "Buy half a box." The rumors were out in L.A. We lived 2 miles from the city hall. The rumors were out that they were going to land in Seattle, San Francisco, Long Beach, and San Diego. But I mean, yeah, what could we do? Then that was the 7th. I think in the first week of 42, I was telling every anti-aircraft gun from San Diego to Seattle lit the sky. Everything, and blackouts. Turn it off, or we'll shoot it out. I heard them say it on the street. But we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, my dad says, "We got to move away from this coast. We're going to move out to the country." Well, the Japanese had got locked up. There was a farm there in El Monte, 14 miles away. So we called that the country. And we stayed there all through the war. And then they started building houses, so we moved out toward Riverside, about 50 miles from LA. But we were the kids. I'd been trying to write a book about teenagers in World War II. We were able to drive a pickup, not on the highways, but on the side roads. They'd send us to turn off a pump, check the water in the field, take a couple of men to irrigate something, and we were teenagers. And then my 14th birthday, it was March 30th of 45, here comes an old beat up Pontiac coupe with 2 Department of Motor Vehicles license guys. And took my fingerprint, said, "You can drive now, but you have to have an 18-year-old or so." Anyway, we had the braceros from Mexico, good workers, not like now, real good workers. And my dad every day would say, "Jose, you look like you'll work hard today. You get to ride to town with my son. You got to pick up alfalfa, oat hay, chicken feed, and all these miscellaneous things that saved my dad from going." And that was World War II. World War II, it was all out. Yeah, teenagers really went. Couldn't wait for our uncles to get back and ask them, "How many did you get?" or something. No, yeah, but they would say, my uncle was a sniper. He was a sniper, and he did tell me, I said, "What'd you use?" 03. Well, 03s were around civilian life forever. Good deer rifles. And he didn't say. He said, "Yeah, 03. And he was in New Guinea.
What was his name?
Fred, Uncle Fred.
Fred.
Yeah. And anyway, after a few snipers, and heck, he was 30-some years. He was older than the company commander. I think he was 35. After a few episodes, or he hit up there in the tree, he said, the guys, Marines and Army guys all yelled, "You got one, Chief." He looked Indian. And my mother's little brother. So he said, he got a card. MacArthur come in the area. You know how he's in a Jeep, and aides beside, and he was in the second Jeep. The first Jeep had a 30 caliber. He did tell me that, because when I was in the Army, I recognized it. Air-cooled 30, light 30. He was in the second Jeep with a 50, and he had a picture of that with a card. Well, that wore out during years, but that's all. He was a little shell shock. We used to call it shell shock. Backfire or something. He'd kind of get nervous. But he'd come back, and he said, "John," my dad had wine barrels. "John, can I get me a little jug of wine, homemade wine?" Take them, "Sure." Well, he'd get 2 empty gallon jugs, and we wouldn't see him for 3 or 4 days. We didn't worry about it. But he worked. He became a driver. He hauled produce with my dad for my dad. Then we got a wholesale place in L.A. So we take it from the farm to him, and he'd sell the produce for my dad.
Yeah. How did rationing affect you during the war?
Didn't affect the farmers. I was telling Al stories about our sailor neighbors. Got an old beat up 36 Ford with a rumble seat, and 3 of them in the front, and 2 in the back, and then 5-gallon jug of motor oil and a 5-gallon jug of gasoline. And they'd make it to, well, we were 95 miles from San Diego, or just in El Monte. And I remember during the war, my dad said, the neighbor boys come to visit, they need gas to go back in that old Ford. I'm busy. I've got to go out and check the water. Fill them up. And we had 500 gallons of gasoline. Well, our rations would come in sheets like that. T, truck, tractor, 5 gallons each. It got diesel. We had the tires. So they back up, boys. The old man's gone in the field. Fill it up. And, hey, we got one here in the trunk, 5 gallon. You remember the square 5-gallon cans?
Yes.
Probably when you was a kid. They wouldn't round, and they had a big old thing. Fill one of them up, and we might see him again, might not till after the war, and they remembered. Boy, John, sure, thank you for them. We were able to come back. But it was a war, you know. And some of them, I know, some we lost one neighbor. He at Battle of the Bulge. He was the oldest son, and supposed to take the farm over for his dad and all that. And the other brother's kind of wild, but yeah, we had. I think that was a gold star, wasn't it? They put up in the
Gold
window.
Star, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blue Star if you served, Gold Star.
Yeah, gold star for the
Yes.
ones that were gone. Yeah, yeah.
Now, how did you help with the scrap metal drives?
Oh, aluminum. We all had in grammar school in the 5th grade. We had little magnets. Oh, it didn't catch. It's brass or aluminum, and then clunk an old skillet. That's good cast iron. And yeah, we had the drives.
Now, where did you collect the scrap metal?
Where?
Where did you take it?
To the school.
To the school?
And then the trucks came picked up at the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we had metal drives and yeah, copper wire and yeah.
Now, did you discuss the war at school?
Yeah, we used to sing, hi ho, we're going to Tokyo, we're going to kill the saps and the dirty Japs, hi ho, and we sang that in grammar school. And I tell my friends, I don't want to sing it. You know, Japanese friends that I grew up with says, well, those are different from us. And I says, yeah, they are. And and in later life, this one guy said, boy, my uncle said them Japs were tough. And then this kid, ex-Marine, Vietnam, he says, them Japanese. So then the guy told him, no, Japanese have these restaurants here. The other ones are over there. That's the Marine, I'm not getting in. But it was a different time for teenagers. Yeah, and we couldn't wait to get 17 or join. Yeah. And my dad said, well, the war finished in 45, in late 45, and I'm going on 15.
Tell me about VJ Day when the war ended.
Oh, all hell broke loose. Oh, in L.A., the traffic was stopped in L.A. From Long Beach to L.A. It was really, yeah. Out in the country, not so much. A lot of, you know, and maybe a bottle of champagne they had hidden someplace, but the Japanese internees were already back, and it was kind of a quiet day, yeah. And then a lot of them had people in the service. We even had friends that had their son in the Pacific, in intelligence, and they were told it's volunteer, because they were told if you're captured, they're going to make beef jerky out of you, and so now they volunteered. Paul Yamaguchi volunteered. He come. I think he had been in a junior college, a 2-year college, so he went in as a second lieutenant. You know, like in the old days, you had 2 years to get you a bar, and he come back as a captain. Yeah, and never talked about it much. Yeah. And he became a produce buyer for a big market chain like Safeway, and real nice guy. We after he leaves, he says, that's Paul. He used to interrogate them Japanese Jap prisoners. I said, no way. But yeah, they were good times. Mm-hmm. Then the Korean War hit us.
I was going to say, what did you do after high school?
Okay, June, farmed, come about this time of year, all, melon patches over with, sweet corn, all the vegetables. So we started plowing the land set for the rainy season. And hell, there's not much income, not much to get from the farm. So I would go to welding shops and work. And finally, I worked for a big welding shop, and the guy said, we're ready to kick you up, but you're a 1A. And I looked at my draft card, it said 1A. They could take you any day now. I was 19. I said, oh, geez. So, January, right after Christmas, January 51, I think on the 7th, me and a buddy of mine, Johnny Orlando, we signed up. I signed up for combat engineers because we had a Caterpillar at home, a D4, and it didn't have a dozer. But when we did need a dozer, the company agency would bring on. They put it on to clear some trees or something. I'll be damned! I never seen a tractor, a dozer until I got to Korea and they were fixing bridges or something. Yeah, I got a shovel all right, but it was a little short one.
Where'd you go for your basic training?
Camp Roberts, California.
Tell me about basic.
Well, to me it was first thing I noticed, the guys driving us out to the ranges in Deuce House couldn't shift them up a hill. And a couple of times one of them rolled back and went into the other one, and I told the other guys, a lot of them had been big rig drivers, and I says, well, it's a damn shame. Those guys were cooks or something, and then they make them truck drivers. Anyway, I said, but it was good. It was good. Here's the good part. We were getting Korean guys from combat already coming back to be cattery. Mm-hmm. And that first sergeant said, and there was one fellow there, Japanese guy, about Al size. He says, Corporal Taniguchi has seen it all. He won't take any crap, so don't give him any crap. And no, he had combat army badge on, and a few of the ribbons, and he'd been Korean in the 50s. In the 50s, that was. Yeah, it didn't get good till late spring of 51. It started to turn. 52 were called the good years because everybody was there then.
Yeah.
All the 40th.
Now, what type of training did you have in basic?
Just
training?
infantry basic.
Infantry basic.
Infantry basic, and orders come down. Shipping orders: A, B, C, D, E. Far East. And them guys were crying. They knew where the Far East was. F, I'm F.A., Falco, the first F, and then Flores and Flowers, and you guys are going to UCOM. I said, where's that at? That's Germany. And them other guys in our platoon, the basic company, they were going. How can it be? We don't make them. See you later. And we left Camp Kilmer, New Jersey on Memorial Day of 51. Mm-hmm. And arrived in Bremerhaven. I went down to the zone.
What ship you on?
A banana boat. That's what they called it. It was not the General Johnson, like the one we went to Japan on from San Francisco. A Navy troop ship. Oh, that's first class. It's like a cruise liner. But we had 4,000 soldiers, 2,000 Marines, and 1,000 Air Force. And at the beginning, they had chicken wire between us. And one of the guys said, sergeants, a lot of sergeants were World War II. 35, they're old guys, 35, 37. So what the hell is this wire for? Sergeant, I don't know. So the top, NCOs, Marines, Air Force, all like Master Sergeant with that little thing in the middle. What the hell is that? First Sergeant. And said, okay, everybody roll up this wire. We rolled it up into the water. And we had no problem. They figured we were going to be fighting or something. Like you do on shore. The GIs will get it with the sailors, the Marines, or whatever.
Remember the name of the ship you're on going to Bremerhaven?
General Hodge or something like that. But it was a Navy transport. It had 5-inch guns in the front. And I remember, I was in Germany a year, I knew my weapons. There were the 40 millimeters, and there were the 20 millimeters all on the side, and I think on the fantail, which is the back of the rear end, there was like a 4-inch gun, but the front one had a bore that big. So we leave San Francisco.
No, this is, you're going to Europe.
Oh, Europe. That banana boat had nothing.
Okay.
No, it was a rust bucket.
So it wasn't a native ship?
No. It just ran from New York to Bremerhaven.
Okay.
Yeah. Went up the English Channel and anchored at Bremerhaven, and we got off.
What were your quarters on that ship?
Pardon me?
Where'd you sleep on that ship? That banana boat?
Fold-down bunks. You know, there's like one on the floor and then one up there on the ceiling. I think it was 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we backed in. And the North Sea is bad. That ship would go up like that, and then go down like that. And if you were in the head back at the rear of the ship, when the propeller came out of the water, it just damn near shook you off that stool. But it was a junk boat. Coming back, we got a better boat.
Now, what were you told to do in case the ship was sinking?
In case the ship was, well, first of all, the life jackets were all over the walls. They just grab a life jacket, and then they have the crew people, they tell you where to go, how to go up or whatever. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What'd you do in Germany?
Okay, wound up in Berlin, 6th Infantry Regiment. At one time I had been part of the, I think 6th Infantry, World War II was attached to the one from Fort Riley, the big red one.
Okay.
But it was an independent regiment, and got there, and I was a rifleman, 47 something MOS. And a friend of mine, he got into the motor pool as a mechanic. So he says, hey, they need a Jeep driver for a certain lieutenant. So, good, I got it. But it was for a heavy weapons company. So my rifleman MOS got changed to heavy weapons, 4812. That was like, the Lord sent me a blessing. There won't be no patrols for this man. Well, in Germany, there were no patrols anyway. So,
Where were you based in Germany?
Berlin.
Oh, you're in Berlin.
Across from Temple Hall Airfield. That's like being across LAX or something. And Air Force was there, and we had one battalion, infantry, just kind of guarding, helping them or whatever. And on the airfield, we practiced with the mortars, and we'd fire, but they were cast iron, just lined at the other end. The live firing of the machine guns was done 2 weeks a year in southern Germany, where they had it'd be like Fort Irwin, and that they fired everything, the tanks and everything fired.
Now, how'd you travel from Berlin to West Germany?
Okay, West Berlin is 100 miles inside the Russian zone.
Yes.
We traveled on a troop train with no weapons. That was the Russians. Windows down all the trip, 100 miles. And if you peeked out, there was somebody watching you with a burp gun. Anyway, we traveled 100 miles. Weapons are on another train, going to maneuvers in southern Germany, and we did a truck convoy one time, the Deuce in the House. Well, we were so beat up, 100 miles on the back of them things. We finally and I never realized why them young German guys our age, 21, 20, 19, they never liked us. The German men that were soldiers, like, World War II, that were 35 or 40, we got along good with them because they worked for us and cleaned the motor pool, did the cooking, did the construction around the battalion there where we were stationed. But them guys, 20, 21, we didn't find out till we were gone. In 1945, they're 14 years old fighting the Russians. You think they weren't hard? And we're sitting there drinking beer, 10 cents for Heineken and Beck, and they're over there drinking some flat-ass beer out of a mug. And always somebody would throw a bottle at our table, and they'd yell MP. We were guilty, automatically guilty. And finally, we were not taking the MP place like a jail or what. And here come our World War II sergeants. And one of them was Mother Pruitt, because he wasn't married, he kind of, said, "You teenagers are going to get me busted." And he was a tech, had D-Day, bulge. I mean, he had it all. And then what is those ones where you're so many years, hash marks?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I think he went in 39 or 40.
Now, who would throw a bottle at your table?
The young German guys throw a bottle and yell MP, and we were just like this, and here they come in through the door. Okay, let's go. Put us in the paddy wagon.
Why didn't the young Germans like you?
We were getting about $75 a month, and all the German girls at our table, the girls 19, 20, 21, and they're sitting over there. They've got no work. They're broke, but they also were combat veterans, and they had a dislike for us. And in the Russian zone,
they had been fighting the Russians.
They had fought the Russians in 45,
okay.
And the Russians described them as the Hitler's devils. Belonged to the Hitler Youth, and they were the junior SS. And the Russians never took any prisoners with them. The Russians later, nowadays, never took. And when the battle was over for Berlin, well, you know why there was no Americans killed in that battle? Eisenhower, American Army, moves up to the Elbe River, 50 miles from Berlin. The GIs are dying to go to Berlin, think it's going to be beer and champagne. Eisenhower says, no, the Russians earned it. Their cities are gone, 30 million dead. Well, and there's still to this day a lot of guys are pissed they didn't go. Eisenhower said, I send you guys going to Berlin, even with the Russians, I'm going to have 100,000 casualties, KIA, wounded, this, whatever. He held them back until the battle was over, and then they went in. But the Russians marched out of Berlin, prisoners, 100,000. It's a big city, bigger than New York. And any German soldier caught in civilian clothes, it was history. The young men, and out of the 100,000, 10,000 come back from Russia. They worked them to death. Literally worked them to death. But like I say, Berlin's a beautiful city, but there was still we got there in 51, that's 6 years after the war, and there were still piles of bricks. Mm-hmm. But what the Germans did, they'd start right here at this corner, they'd clear the bricks from that rubble. The second house became the first house. And they kept going down the block. Then that last corner was empty. They took the bricks from that one. And the women and old men were taking the bricks and cleaning the mortar off of them and stacking them. And then the guys were moving them around. But they were building fast. They were really building. And I never knew the history that was there at Tempelhof. Yeah. 4 stories down. Oh, 4 stories down, they were rebuilding the fighters that came in. And they had, when the Russians started coming in, there's a lot of underground, subways, trains, and the Russians flooded it, turned this big river into all the subways, while the German civilians were down there getting away from the bombing and the ground fighting. I mean, they say every subway, every underground, every basement was flooded, and it was a sad fight. And the Russians would only let us go visit their East Berlin with their escorts. And you know where they took us to visit? Their war monuments. That T-34 tank and marble from the Chancellery, from their Capitol building. They're all over East Berlin. And we just, But we never drove over or walked over,
Now, how long after the Berlin airlift were you there?
We got right after it. It finished in 50, and we got there in 51. Yeah, they were still, they must have had 1,000 deuce and a halves at this one motor pool we went to. Because as the planes came in, the German civilians with coal, whatever, as fast as they can load a C-54, the 4-engine ones, as fast as they can load it and take off again. And we lost a lot of pilots in the fog or Malfa, whatever. It was over, and they saved the civilian population. It cost us, but we saved it. And the old Stalin couldn't figure how did he get so many planes transports, but we had them, yeah, and that was. So I was there. I went to one maneuver, and then in the spring of '52, they said we have openings for volunteers that want to go to the Far East. There's a lot of rank to be made. Well, sure is, especially if you're in a machine gun squad. And I was regular Army, at almost 2 years ago. Single, they specified single. And, well, we'd not been raising hell one night drinking, and about 15 of us said, hell, we're going to the Far East. And we didn't even know what the word Korea was. We're gonna go to the Far East. So we all signed up. And next morning, reveille, they called my name, and about 6 more names. One of the names was Bobby Yoakum, Dwight Yoakum's nephew or cousin. He signed up. Well, we're out there, and they said, okay, you 6 get over. You're in line ahead. Everybody, go to chow and pack up. You'll be on a train here within an hour and a half. And I said, what the hell happened to the other 15 or 20? The CQ told us during the night they all come back. They sobered up when they realized, somebody told them it could be Korea, and they scratched their names off that list, that volunteer list. So I looked and says, them dirty so-and-sos. So we packed up, got on the train, and went to Bremerhaven. Got on a transport, not too bad, New York. New York, they put us on, never forget, it was those TWA planes with 3-tail Constellations. I'd never been in a plane in my life, let alone not leave California. I never was on a train till the troop train brought us from Camp Roberts to New Jersey. And I got on, had Class A uniform then, because in Germany, no khakis in Germany, it's always that brown uniform. So we landed in San Francisco, going there. There was more of us from the zone in Germany that were going. There was quite a few people. And anyway, we get on this Navy transport. Wow. I'd been in the service a year already. Most of them were recruits out of boot camp. So anyway, first thing I spot Sergeant over there, he had that European Eisenhower patch. Sergeant, what kind of duty are you going to have? Well, I'm in charge of the bakery cleanup detail. And you've been in Berlin? Yeah. Well, come with me right now. He signed me up. Bakery detail. And then recruits were mopping and cleaning and, upset stomachs. And we got up with the bakers at 3:30 in the morning. Got in there. They needed flour, and we brought flour.
This is on the ship?
On the Navy troop ship.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Navy bakers take pride in it. I mean, they see a loaf of bread or, a coffee cake or something. It's like a bakery at home. And anyway, Sergeant pulled me in there with him.
What was the name of that ship?
General Hodge.
General Hodge.
I think it was a 3-stacker. We'd go by the stacks. But it was an armed Navy troop ship. Yeah. But we then we're going across the Pacific, and I'm looking at the fantail where the water comes out. The rumor was we're gonna pull into Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, someplace. And I said, there's 7,000 or 8,000 men on this ship. I said to myself. And anyway, about the 2nd of July, I noticed the back of the water, the water, how a ship turns? It's not straight, it's turned. Well, we turned away from Hawaii. I asked one of them old Navy guys, the older guy. He says, we're not going into port. He says, we're heading straight to Yokosuka, something, Japan.
Yokohama?
It's a port it's a big Navy port.
Okay.
But that's where the ships come in.
Okay.
And from there, you get on shore, and you fire an M1 if you're in the infantry, and then you reload and we landed there, and we were there one day, And then they loaded it up again, and we went to Pusan. Well, we'd already broken out of Pusan. The Marines had already been in
Had
Incheon.
you already been assigned to 45th?
No, we were replacements.
Okay.
So we get to Yung Dung Po, about 10 miles south of Seoul, and there's another sergeant in there, and he says, and he was one of the older ones, World War II, but I'd say he was 37, and Master Sergeant. He was a replacement sergeant. Falco, yes sir. What were you in over there in Berlin? It's 81 millimeter, sir, heavy weapons. I said, yeah, I don't have anything in the 81s now. Well, the last thing he would do is put me in a rifle company, but I have a heavy, He says, but the 4 deuce mortars need a couple of guys. I said, well, sir, sergeant, the sights are the same. It just, shell instead of weighing 13 pounds, weighs 25 pounds. And he said, and he said, they're back with the 105s. I mean, if something happens, you've got plenty of time to get the hell out of there. And I said, sir, because I know the 81s can be taken on a patrol, a company patrol. They'll take a couple 81s with them. And, okay, so, and had some beers after that. And anyway, the next morning, Deuce and Halves are loading us up to take us up to the 45th Division. And I noticed the truck got near, you could start seeing emplacements, seeing tanks, you're getting close. And 155s, we passed them. And I said, that's fine, and this would be a nice, but heck, no sooner I said this would be a nice place to be, the truck stopped. Assistant driver got off Falco. Private Falco, yes sir. You're here. But that time some guys come out of some emplacements. Oh, you're a new guy? Yeah. And so I was attached to the 117th Heavy Mortar Company. And I think I was in the 1st platoon.
179th Heavy Mortar?
Yeah, 179. And that's how I learned to speak Oklahoma. That night, they were going to move something, and I heard a captain and lieutenant and said, we're going to yonder tonight. And I told this other guy, he's from California, and says, the only yonder I remember is an Air Force song, over yonder, and he says, where in the hell is it on the compass? So he said, follow close so you can feel it. And all they were doing was moving one of the guns over to the side. And over yonder, we're over yonder. Yeah, and they were a good bunch. I got to see a master sergeant that was 21. He was the National Guard in Oklahoma. Never missed a meeting since he was 17 years old. Here he was about 21 or 22. And he had expert rifle, he had expert everything, and he was in charge of the platoon. That's 4 mortars. And he was master sergeant, 45th. So then, I was there about 2 months, 3 months, and coming down the hill from the front line, there's Bobby Yoakum. He's a tech sergeant. He said, Falco, you got to come up there. There's a lot of rank up there. I said, how'd you get it so fast? Well, you know how it is up in the front. I said, I think I have an idea. Somebody in front of you that used to be a ticker sergeant ain't there no more. That's just, and the guys behind me were laughing. He said, go ahead, Falco, there's a lot of rank up there. That's on the MLR. They said, I've only been up there a few times to take black coffee and green scrambled eggs to our forward observer and his radio man. And I looked in that, they had trenches, water in the bottom, and everybody watching me, and I said, there's 5 gallons of black coffee, and there's 5 gallons of green scrambled eggs. It was just daylight. They're all coming over. Till they're gone. And I had some Korean fellows that carried, we went so far in a Jeep, then they carried it probably a half a mile the rest of the way. We stayed friendly with everybody. We took advantage. We had Filipino soldiers in front on the main line. And being I was from LA when I was little, 12 years old. One of the Filipino lieutenants, one time, he was speaking Spanish. And oh, you speak Spanish? Oh, in college, I was a master of languages. and that was the 19th Battalion Combat Team from Manila. They'd send, there, in the Philippines, they'd send a battalion combat team, 17th, 18th, and 19th, while we were supporting, being they didn't have their own heavy weapons companies, we supported the 19th. And me and this Filipino lieutenant got to talking about LA, and he said, you know where Figueroa and Temple is? He says, my folks had a little market a mile from there. We call that Little Manila. My uncle lives there. So that $20 bottle of VO, for me it was $5. And they'd sell me 4 bottles at a time. And the captains and lieutenants find out I had a stash of, I think, 4 bottles. So I'll go, yes, sir. We're going back to the Mass Hospital. One of our fellow officers is there at the hospital, and we'd like to take him a gift. He says, I'm not Santa Claus, but they knew, I knew what they wanted. And I said, well, and our lieutenants were ERs. They were World War II officers called back in. One had a turkey farm, another had a big something business, lumber business. And he says, okay, sir, I'll make a deal with you. We'll take the best Jeep we got that's got sides on it. It was snow time. And the 3 of them went. And did you get our gifts? I gave them 2 bottles wrapped up in
What kind of wine was it?
VO, Canadian VO.
Okay, VO.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Canadian VO wasn't wine. It wasn't wine.
$5 for me, because their uncle, I knew where their uncle lived in L.A. And anyway, they were in there, and so I stayed in the Jeep, left the motor running, and I think they were in there for a couple, 3 hours. And I think them 2 bottles went around where the hospital area was back there. It was about 7 or 8 miles back. And coming back, we were real careful. They put a deuce and a half in a Jeep in front of us, just in case somebody did something to the road. No, we got back, and they said, well, that he couldn't believe it when he put that bottle up in that tent. And that was the officer with it. Said, where the hell did you get it? Yeah.
Now, what was your MOS in Korea?
4812, heavy weapons.
Heavy weapons.
Heavy
okay.
weapons, yeah.
Okay.
Heavy weapons, yeah. That was a good bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And I married a girl from Tulsa in 1958. We come back when Kathleen was a baby. She was 3 or 4 months old, come back for Christmas. 59, she was born 59. Anyway, I'd ask my father-in-law, Chester Hall, got a machine gun across in Normandy. Chester, where's the 45th at? Where's the National Guard at? Oh, hell, they're out, way in hell out there in, what's his name's from? Will Rogers? Orland or Claremore?
In Claremore.
Well, 20 miles from where they lived. And they talked like it was 100 miles. Or I would have made contact with my division 50-some years ago. And probably joined the 45th instead of joining the last year or 2. And I always, because at home, National Guard tank outfit 40th was 2 miles down the road. But they were so nice. They'd invite me to their breakfast, in the last 10 years, and they just kept going down till there was 3 or 4 of us at breakfast for the 40th. And they were right there. We relieved them on Heartbreak Ridge. And they got to Japan a little bit ahead of the 45th, to Hokkaido for the last training. And we heard through the grapevine that when the Harry mortar pits got direct hit, and it raised all hell, ammo and everything. So then I asked this one sergeant that they're replacing, what's Heartbreak Ridge like, where I hear they're doing a lot of the Marines, from the Marines were my neighbors when we were farming in Oceanside. And ironic, I'm going to LA with a little truckload of produce, about 4 or 5 in the evening. They've got the tomatoes and bell peppers. I'm going from the racetrack there, going through Oceanside, and this was June, a few days after the war started, by July, first part. And here's these convoys, Marine deuce and a halves, with the trailers, duffel bags, loaded. and they're going to San Diego to load to go to Korea. I ain't lying to you. I think that went on for 3 weeks, day and night. I'd go to L.A., unload the produce, stay at my aunt and uncle's, come back in the morning, loaded empty containers. I'm going back, and here's that Marine convoy still going to San Diego, because when a convoy, they just have they have the slow lane on the 4-lane highway. You couldn't pass, get in, nothing. The red lights, they had their MP, they were just, no stopping. We stopped at a red light, and they're stopping. And I told my dad, I don't know where the hell they're going. They're going to Heartbreak Ridge. Or frozen chosen. Yeah, and years later, and they always.
Now, what is the Heartbreak Ridge? What is?
It's like where they fought. Marines and Chinese fought. One would chase the other one off. The other one would come back, chase them off, back and forth. And I asked what it's like, and they said, "Oh, our mountains have beautiful pine trees, and all that." Hell, when I got there was nothing but stumps. I mean, but the Marines had a big fight there, and then they naturally, when the Marines came, when they went up to the Yellow River, when MacArthur went all the way, on the way back, their general said, "We're not retreating. We're just attacking in a different direction." But the Marines were very smart. They kept all their division together, and the Army broke up into divisions, and the Chinese were picking them off like fish in a barrel. And but we were there, and well, we got there 52, spring of 52. The 45th Division, in one of the books my daughter bought me, called Bloody June of 52. I said, "What do you mean Bloody June, eh?" While the mortars are just firing, they're firing like the end of town. But I didn't realize when they meant Bloody June that the rifle companies would send out 50 men, the Chinese would send out 150. A lot of times they get out in no man's land, and that's when they call us or the artillery. But they like the mortars, because the mortars you can call a mortar in just across this creek, if you know what you're doing. And the Chinese aren't expecting that overhead fire; they're expecting it behind them. So they'll bundle up, and the guy says, "Boy, you really cleaned them up." And they'd come back on off of patrol, off the main line, about every 4 or 5 days, a shower or something. They come down past us, and we always had black coffee. I don't know how he got it. And sometimes even some green scrambled eggs and an old beat up stove. And they'd come down, and they didn't say nothing. And yeah, 10 or 15 of them, the squad, pulling black coffee. And one time we even got somebody dropped off some loaves of bread. And we heated it up and made scrambled egg sandwiches. They stayed a little longer that time. But we had a Puerto Rican mess sergeant, and he was back about half a mile. But he got coffee someplace, and he brought us cans. So we had black coffee. But those patrols, they looked tired. They were going back and take a shower, rest area, maybe a few days.
Now, did you go on patrol?
No. I went up to the main line to take coffee and green scrambled eggs to the forward observer.
Now, how far in front was the main line? Front line?
Maybe 500. I'd say 500 to 1,000 yards. Okay. Oh, the main line, our main line was there. Then there was no man's line. I'm sure the no man's line went down this mountain and then up the other one. And they were just like we're doing over here, they're doing over there. Yeah. And during the day, what the mortar guys would do, and even the artillery, that night the officers report concentrations of troops at such a place on a mountain. So, and give them the azimuth, whatever they call all that math and stuff. The next day our observer would say, fire mission for zeroing in. And usually each gun would fire 2 or 3 rounds, and they'd write it down. And that night when they were out there, they had all that down. So and so, so and so, so and so. And And anyway, when they were close enough, they'd say, you'd hear them fire for effect, and they just kept dropping them in. Yeah, but it was very organized. I'm saying, we never got overrun because we got overrun. There's a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Headquarters is behind us someplace here. Yeah, but my buddy that signed up with me went to service. He went to the first cav and they caught all kinds of hell. He said he was behind a rock. Chinese guys kept running past him. He said, wait a minute, I'm here, they're going by, and he wound up back there by himself. And I said, did you get captured? He says, no. Finally, there's a patrol come back and got me and a few guys that were bypassed, and they got together. But their first cav division headquarters got hit. Mm-hmm. Now, some people say they lost their colors, some people say they didn't, but I didn't go into saying a lot of guys from the other divisions say they're when they got overrun. So, but I noticed. I said, well, 1st Cavalry, Custer, 7th Cavalry, Custer. I said, no matter where they go, them Indians got a curse on them. And I said, they go to Vietnam and they catch all hell. And they go to Korea and they're catching it again. Oh, Lord.
Oops. Yeah, I was in the 1st Cav in Vietnam.
You're kidding. You flying around them choppers?
Yeah.
You know what I call them? Choppers, to me, I know what a 50 will do to them. I said, my God, even if they have a little armor plating, that 50 caliber can tear one, and sure as hell, they show some of the actual footage. It's, oh God. Then I show the ones that loaded up, got as high as these trees, and here, boom, down again. Like, oh.
You have any contact with the local people of Korea?
There's none left where I live. Mm-hmm. No, they're my neighbors are Vietnam, and one's Purple Heart with about 3 little things on it, and he's at the VA hospital a lot, mm-hmm. And no. 40th Division, the 40th Division used to invite me to breakfast, the 40th National
But
Guard.
In Korea, did you have contact with the local people? The Koreans?
Oh, in Korea? No. We had Korean we had the Rock Army. Yeah. They were online with the American, and we had the Korean Service Corps, the guys that filled sandbags, the guys that used to haul them thermite things, up. We get so far, and then whatever it was, black coffee or like say scrambled eggs or whatever, up to the MLR, to the machine guns and.
Now, what's MLR?
Main line of resistance.
Okay.
You get when that line gives, there's problems. That means they've overrun the main line and they're heading down. Mm-hmm. They're heading toward the mortars, toward the artillery, toward the little supply areas. Yeah. So.
Now, were you there when MacArthur was relieved?
Yeah, I think I was. Was it 52 or 51? But I remember Ridgway becoming command.
What did you think when MacArthur was removed?
Well, here's what we heard. That he wanted to drop an A-bomb on the Chinese. And he got fired. And the Marines were kind of off for MacArthur.
You talk about the Marines.
The Marines were kind of more for MacArthur than the Army, although he was an Army man. But me and my uncle served under MacArthur. He's a great general, and he was the big man in the Pacific, 5 stars. There was only one more, and that was Ike. And but Ridgway came in, and we heard he told the troops in Korea, hey, no more running back, bugging out. That happened the first part of the Korean War. They were overwhelmed. They had a light machine gun against a Russian-made T-34 tank, and that's one hell of a tank. And anyway, he said the only thing that I heard that Mark Clark was back, the one they had in Anzio, couldn't make up his mind whether to load the troops up and take them out of there or stay and fight or whatever. But heck, done on the lines. We just knew. I remember when I came over in '52, the summer of '52, like a pre-election. He says, "Troops, man, tell your mom and dad to vote for me, and I'll have you out of here." And the guy said, "Oh yeah, that politics." Well, he got elected in November of '52, sworn in January, February, March, April, May. 5 months later, Korea shut down. So and I said, maybe it does work. Tell mom and dad to vote for me. But everybody liked Ike. I like Ike. I still got my badges. Yeah. So, but then I was there the summer of '52 in June. I never realized until I read the 45th Division book, the big book, and it's called Bloody June. And I said, I never realized the rifle companies in front of us, like at our big reunion, A Company, Charlie Company, Easy Company, all. I said, where in the hell's the mortar guys? They should all be here. And you guys, so he says, well, we don't know. But I didn't realize in front of us that some of the companies were losing 5-6 men a night. KIA. And then, Company E, Company F, Fox Company, Charlie Company, rifle companies, the ones up there at the main line. And then the Chinese would attack, and they'd push them back. Or sometimes, heartbreak is when they push you out of your position. You've dug your hole, and you got a nice place, but you're overwhelmed, so you have to fall back to the second. But I never knew about the couch. The first time I seen 2 black bags on the side of the road, I had gone back for something with another guy in a Jeep, and they were at an intersection, 2 body bags. I never knew what I had done. I looked over and he says, you don't want to be one of them. There were 2 body bags. Brought up that night, put for the GRS, Grave Registration Service, pick them up, do what they do, and never saw them again. But that morning they were there at an intersection on the way up to our position, and I said, "Wow."
Now, what's the chosen reservoir?
The chosen reservoir was north of Seoul, maybe 100 miles. But all the roads went to that road. 1st Marine Division, 7th Army Division. That's where they got surrounded by Chinese. 100 to 1 or something like that. Ridiculous. That's when the Marine General decided, it's my division, I run it, not the Army. The 8th Army, was Korea. So anyway, the Marine Division grouped their division, and as they pulled away, they were surrounded by Chinese. But the front of the 1st Marine Division had the tanks, had the heavy stuff. Just kept pushing the Chinese to the side. All of the Chinese were in the hills doing this. But see, we had our Navy planes. We had Sky Raider, carried as much as a B-17, and it did. And had the Corsairs with their 50 calibers, and the Air Force had their Mustangs. And there was one more. But those were the favorites. Sky Raider carried 5 or 6 500-pound bombs. Corsair had 8 450s, and you could see them fire the puffs up. And the Mustang were like 19-year-old kids as high as these trees, and they do all these. But the Mustang guys really supported a lot of the up-close Army guys. Mm-hmm. We'd hear them, and to this day, there's an airport south of me in Chino, and I hear them Merlin Rolls Royces, and they say, "There comes a Mustang." What do you? Here it comes, silver with white under the wings, which means with the white stripes, D-Day. The Germans couldn't figure out what the hell they got white. No, nobody knew till that day what it meant. Mm-hmm. German planes, no white stripes, shoot them down. And anyway, I watched a Mustang. We came on Thanksgiving. The Chinese figured we were going to be all sitting back eating turkey and laying back away from Well, just about the time we got through eating, we could hear them coming up the valley, and they'd go right over our position and down on the Chinese, and then the Chinese had all the aircraft guns in the aircrafts to shoot them in the butt. Here's what the guys would do. They'd drop their hardware and do a backflip and where the gun and get low again. And you could hear that whatever was happening shooting, but it was shooting at nothing. And then once in a while, when you would come over, he looked like he was a high school kid. Yeah, and boy, they really raised the morale. Yeah, that really kicked our morale up. See them planes. And we had Air Force, we had Navy, we had Air Force observers, all officers naturally.
Mm-hmm.
We had Navy lieutenants, forward observers for the Missouri. Now that ship, it fired, I think it was down about Tulsa someplace, but you'd hear the 16-inch rounds go over, and it sounded like somebody tearing a big piece of cardboard. Zzz. And it must have been a dud, but that time, earthquake out there someplace. Yeah, and at night it lit the sky up. Mm-hmm. And that was the Missouri. It was firing over us. And the guys, I remember our captains and lieutenants, they said, "You guys got anything down there?" And I said, "We've got a couple of bottles." And new ones, they just come up. Yeah. And said they'd walk them over. And I said, "No, I got two, I'll split one with you." And our lieutenant would take them up there. But they were clean shaven and nice clothes on. You know, that navy jacket that's like canvas with fur inside. Said, wow.
How cold was it in Korea?
We had, 52, 51 was the coldest winter in 50 years. Our men were wearing khakis, the first ones. They had those leather with, they had rubber with leather uppers, some kind of, almost stateside. And by the fall, 51, snow gear showed up, parkas, bunny boots. They got that insulation, they got air in between, you don't hardly need socks. And I'll tell you what, by 52, the tide was turned. That's when they started going to the peace tables or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could tell the morale was different. Well, when I got there in the spring of 52, you'd look around and you'd see barrels of fuel. You'd see 50 tanks. You'd see 155s in the back, reserve. And you knew that, yeah. And there was no more, oh gosh, we're going to get pushed back 5 miles today after we dug all them holes and sandbags. When I got there, the only time we moved from the spring of 52 till the spring of 53 was to a new position. Mm-hmm. And said, we're going to take Joe's outfit over. They're going back on rest. Or it could be they're rotating back to the States. But there was none of this being overrun or going from here to the end of, wherever. And we stayed pretty much in the show. You'll see the pictures. When there was nothing going on, we filled sandbags and just made them higher and higher and higher. Originally, the mortars and the heavy weapons didn't have no protection. They were right in the open. Mm-hmm. So, but as time goes on, and we had Korean laborers. Mm-hmm. They were too old for the military or unfit for it, but they were assigned as Korean Katusas or something like that, Korean Labor Corps. And they lived in their own little huts over there, but they unloaded ammunition. They like I say, they carried coffee up to the main line, and it was good. We always had a young teenager or something that interpreted, because them kids learn English real fast, Joe. Yeah.
What's your most vivid memory of Korea?
Telling me to pack up. I'd been there 10 months. Pack up, go to the CP. I'd go to CP, yes sir. Pack up, Falco, you're going home. I says, oh, I still got 2 months to go. He says, weren't you in Germany for a year? Yes sir. You got 2 points. You need 12 to go home. And I had And I went back, and I told the guys, I'm going home. Who died? Mom and Dad. Well, they didn't send you home, but anyway, I grabbed give me the oldest duffel bag, and I had a bunch of clean socks. And I always kept socks in my, right here, spare, each side, my side. We had flak jackets, naturally. We got flak jackets in the spring of '52, which was nice, and they were green, looked good. And anyway, I said, and there's a pair of brand new fatigues in there. So I took somebody's old patched up fatigue and took, anyway, where you going? I'm going home. I got 2 points for being in Germany, so I don't have to stay here 2 more months. They were nice, and so I was glad for you. So I started my trip home.
Tell me about coming home.
Coming home, San Francisco. We went to Japan. We got a nice big steak dinner. 2 days later, we're on not a big troop ship or Navy ship, but a civilian transport. But at San Francisco, they had a band for us. California guys got off first, naturally. Oh, married ones with kids got off ahead of us. They had it. That was nice. And
what do you think going under the Golden Gate Bridge?
oh, I got pictures of that. I should have brought. I had pictures going. Yeah, there it is. Boom. That 35 million working overtime. And anyway, but we got home, and everybody asked me, "Where the hell you been?" Oh, my high school buddies, my old girlfriends. Where the hell you been? Oh, I've been in Korea. What'd you do there? The Forgotten War.
Yep.
Yeah, son. Yeah. Oh, Lord. Yeah, that was quite the time.
Would you join the Army again?
Oh, I sure would. If I would have known what I know now, I would have joined National Guard at 17. And I encourage to this day, we have a lot of Hispanic families that their mom and dad, they may not be American citizens or they're not legally in the country, but the kids are American citizens. And I said, it's going to be tough for you, because I know our family, we push college. Well, I'm the first generation to be in the service of this country. And my dad came here 100 years ago, and my mother about 80. And I say, well, if I would have known what I know now, I would have gone to college. And when I was a senior in high school, the Colorado School of Mines came out to the farm and says, Mr. Falco, we got a place for your son at Colorado School of Mines, 4 years, room and board, $5,000. My dad says, hell no, I need him here. I just tell him now, I would have had, gone to school of mine, I would have had my own airplane by now. But it wasn't meant to be. But that was the price in 50. 4 years, 5,000. But finally I realized, like I told them sergeants, oh, then my dad tried to get me out, hardship army out of Berlin. He had these, I should have brought those pictures. He had the commander of National Guard in Los Angeles area, a doctor, big shot doctor, another man from the Department of Agriculture, and he had about 4 or 5 letters that he was having a hard time replacing me. I lived at home. I got $20 a week. I ate that up in hamburgers by Wednesday. But so they call me in the CP room in Berlin. It's a big office there, like Korea. Falco, yes, sir. The lieutenant. There's a captain. There's a major. There's a light bird. And they were battalion was up there in our office. They were off wherever I was. This Falco, yeah, got letters here from your father. Yeah. He needs you at home. He says replacing you is costing him $200 a week. I said, sir, how many men is that? He says, you, a Class A truck driver, because we had some friends that had their big rigs, and their drivers were making $50 a week. That's $200 a month, isn't it? And then the lieutenant colonel says, I don't make that much. And I said, what does he raise on his farm? I said, tomatoes and watermelons, and I thought it was gold nuggets or something. And anyway, here's the last. Do you want to go home? I said, sure, I signed up for 3 years. And they're not up yet. They all saluted me. I couldn't believe it. I said, wow, what do I do? How do I turn that? I said, I'm in for 3 and I'm doing my 3. Well, it was long after that. Not long after that. I said, you know, I did not like garrison life. Spit shining, parades, and one German, our company tailor, Willie, he was a Panzer driver. He said, you know, every month you guys parade. We, meaning the German civilians, and we're parading down Broadway, Berlin. We close our eyes and we see green uniforms. Our uniforms were brown, only green was German.
Yes.
They boomed that drum, boomed that drum. And then I asked our ladies used to clean the hallways and our floors. They were probably in their 50s or 60s. And mother in German is Mutti. So we called them mother. I forget their last names. Mother, did you ever see the Fuhrer, you know, the guy with the mustache? Oh, no. He never came to Berlin. I said, huh? What? You know, like they didn't know about him. He never came to Berlin. I said, yeah, sure. And when I left, we're leaving to Korea, me and the other guys said to Willie the tailor, he was about 40 at the time. He said, I wish I was going with you guys. You still want to fight after that damn war? I wish I was going with you. So, yeah, that was quite the time.
I like to do a word association. Give you some words and you give me your reaction.
Okay.
The first one is Adolf Hitler.
Well, we know in World War II as teenagers that he was bad. Mm-hmm. We didn't know nothing about the camps or nothing. And okay, we know one of our neighbors, Guadalupe, but Lupe, we call him Lupe. He was an excellent son. First, he got killed at the Battle of the Bulge. So we grew up. We used to call the Germans Krauts. Oh, that's not correct. Well, and then the World War II guy says that's what I called them. And then the civilian says, no, they're Germans. And Krauts to me, jobs over there. But so anyway.
When you have basic training.
Basic training seems like we got through the day and we're so tired, we just remembered what we learned that day, whether it was a machine gun or a rifle or whatever, yeah. And our cavalry, half was back from Korea, which was good for us, and half was civilian. Mostly, we had a lot of Southern guys. I never forget Sergeant Duncan and Corporal Claunch. And I said to the guys, "Are they going with us when we go overseas?" You know, and like a lot of, I think the Marines when they train as a group and they go overseas as a group. And ours stayed behind to train them more. But they were very, very efficient, very efficient.
Berlin.
Beer and girls and spit shine. Mm-hmm. Garrison life. Nah. Hey, I'm from a farm. The only time we wore nice shiny shoes were funerals and weddings. Not every Saturday morning. And IG inspections where they flip the toilets up and check. But no.
Korea.
Lucky. Heavy weapons. 45th. Mostly regular army. Draftees were a pain in the ass. First thing they asked me at regular, did you find a home in the army? I said, hell no. I had plenty of work. My dad had new tractors, new trucks. So, and we had running water now. So what about you? You know, the guys from down up in the hills of Kentucky and Missouri. That used to get them.
179th.
I only have one regret. I didn't get involved sooner. And all these years, I've been coming, well, in 74, we were here in Bartlesville to see Betty, but they didn't live here. And anyway, my wife and daughters, they would come and see my mother-in-law more often than I would come. But it's too bad that Chester Hall my late father-in-law, then drive me out to Claremore where I could have joined the 45th Association back in 1959. I would have been more involved. Yeah. I said, what would have been if we would have moved here maybe in those years and enjoyed this beautiful country? And like I was telling the guys as I was leaving 45th, I said, you know, you guys put up a flag and nobody looks at it, nobody says, why did you put it up or something? And boy, they all. I says, I will say one thing, you're more patriotic here than we are in California. I said, we got them hippies, we got weirdos, we got, and I remember when the Army said, oh, you're from California, the land of the fruits and nuts? And says, I guess so. Yeah.
Douglas MacArthur.
Family. Colonel Honnold, we got married. My wife got to meet him. Yes, he died in 53. Yeah. Colonel Honnold, okay. Betty told my wife, and even, you know, she's always said, my dad was on MacArthur's staff in the Philippines before the war. And I don't know what, but see, I think he was getting close to retirement at the beginning of the Korean War. So, but I looked at his picture up there on the wall, glasses, 1925, and I said, boy, he looks like he'd be a stern one. He said, yeah, I bet he is. But he was kind of like our hero.
Yeah.
My uncle served under him, and then in Korea. And I could never understand. We watched it on TV when he made his speech to Congress. Mm-hmm. Old soldiers never die; they just fade away. And I said, "Oh my God!" He used to command. He commanded everything in the South Pacific, and you don't understand. Politics got him. Yeah.
Harry Truman.
Yeah. Well, you know, he was vice president, and the guys in Germany hated him because when the Korean conflict started, he gave everybody an extra year. So you're getting out of the service, all of a sudden you got an extra year, the Truman year. But he had to do it. Yeah. We had no army. He had to extend the one we had, and he did, yeah. But not only did they stay an extra year, they stood longer.
Yeah. Dwight Eisenhower.
I like Ike. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the family voted for him. He brought us
How do
on.
you want to be remembered?
Me? Lucky. Lucky I got out of a rifle company. Mm-hmm. And I always told the guys at the big meeting we had, I said, I feel for you when I see your name tag, Easy Company, Charlie Company, Mike Company. I said, and you're here? I said, I don't know how you did it. And he said, well, and then I don't ask them how many purple hearts they got or whatever, but I always feel lucky I didn't have to go on patrol, because patrols are dangerous. But
anything else you want to talk about?
No, not really. I do want to say that I wish I would have joined the National Guard or the 45th Association years back. Maybe in 59 when I was here. Maybe in, you know, no. And I always wondered where they were. I'm going to that 79th, 179th today. But I always wondered, and I'd ask my father, they're out there someplace in Claremore, 20 miles away. Hell, we go to the store 20 miles. I mean, in a grocery store. But no, other than that, like I say, I was just lucky. Yeah.
Well, this is an excellent interview.
Oh, thank you.
I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Yeah, thank you.
And again,
I got a few pictures for you.
Yeah, this is September 30th, 2015. Yeah. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Nuncio Falco in Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Oh, good.
Thank you.